In a small shed in Milwaukee, Wisconsin in 1903, four men came together to build a brand that would become one of the most iconic cultural, motorsports, and recreational icons in the world. William Harley, Arthur, Walter, and William A. Davidson came together, young entrepreneurs with a dream to make motorized two-wheeled vehicles a reality. And not 17 years later, Harley-Davidson motorcycles were being shipped to over 60 countries worldwide. Their legacy is undoubted, expanding into motorsports through the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, and today, their impact is still felt around the world. So tonight, we return to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, to the Harley-Davidson Museum, to honor their legacy and announce their recognition by the Motorsports Hall of Fame of America. Join us as we venture into the past and learn from their dedication, commitment to excellence, and ultimately, their triumphant success. The Motorsports Hall of Fame of America presents Honoring the Legacy of Harley-Davidson.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this special live stream event from the Motorsports Hall of Fame of America. I'm David Hobbs, and tonight we're in the spectacular Harley-Davidson Museum in downtown Milwaukee to announce a very special inductee, or in this case, inductees, into the Hall of Fame of class of 2022, which will be held next March in Daytona Beach, Florida. And down at the Daytona Speedway. And tonight we've got some very, very special guests. We've got Willie G. Davidson, his son Bill, and his daughter Carr. But before we get hear from them, here's George Levy, the Motorsports Hall of Fame Chairman and President.
Hi, it's my great honor to be here tonight to announce the final inductee for the class of 2022. They are the founders of the Harley-Davidson Motorcycle Company, William S. Harley, and three Davidson brothers, Arthur, Walter, and William A. Davidson. And as David said, they will be enshrined on March 8th in Daytona at the class of 2022 induction ceremony. And it's so special to be here in Milwaukee at the Harley-Davidson Museum to do this. And by the way, if any of you out there haven't been to the Harley-Davidson Museum, it's a spectacular, spectacular place, and it's a bucket list kind of item to make sure you come here. I want to say one quick thing about the way that the voting is done for the Hall of Fame. It is a straight vote among 200 voters, half of whom are journalists and historians, half of whom are inductees themselves. So when someone like the founders of Harley-Davidson are inducted, it's because the greatest names in motorsports decided that's how it should be. It's not us making that decision. It's not, there are no smoke-filled rooms, there are no super delegates. It's a straight vote among those experts, and we couldn't be more thrilled to see the Harley-Davidson founders and what this company has meant to motorsports in general for more than 100 years be part of the Motorsports Hall of Fame of America.
And no white smoke out of the chimney either. So Willie G., as the grandson of the co-founder, William A. Davidson, and someone who's been so instrumental in running the company for such a long, long time, what does this honor mean to you?
Happy to be here. This is an exciting time for all of us, and motorcycles are a way of life, and our brand has succeeded, and we're proud to be able to share this stage with the two of you and talk about motorcycles.
Well, we'll be doing a lot of that, I'm sure. Now, I know you're the grandson. Did you know any of the founders very well, or were you just a bit of a whippersnapper?
I was like 4 years old when William A., my grandfather, passed. So I didn't know a lot. I was at some of their homes over that time period. They had a beautiful lake home out here on Pine Lake, And I enjoyed going out there with my dad. If I was a good boy, he'd take me for a ride. And that place was great. Some neat buildings, nice home, but they attracted some friends. One of them had an airplane, a float plane.
Oh.
He also had a Garwood, beautiful wood boat in a water building. And so I loved all the hardware. It was fun to go out there. But my knowledge of William A. was really kind of limited.
Well, I mean, as somebody who ran the company yourself for such a long time, only retiring in 2012, what do you think it was about those four that made them gel and made them so successful in the first place?
Well, I think you have to kind of plug yourself into that time period. I mean, horse and buggy was still very active. So they were trying to figure out a way to move people around. And the engines were just coming, and the bicycles were very popular. So they decided they're going to marry the two, and they went to work. And they made most of the parts. I mean, this wasn't like going to a catalog and say, I want one of those. They had to make the parts. And they did that in a small shed near our original factory location. So it's pretty amazing when you think of those days and where we're at today, to make that comparison. Is pretty spectacular, and they were dedicated. They had we're going to do this attitude, and so the stories have been told over and over and over.
Well, you'll be coming down to Daytona in March to accept their induction into the Motorsports Hall of Fame, and obviously the Motorsports Hall of Fame implies there's a lot of racing involved. How big a part do you think racing made in the heyday of Harley-Davidson to sort of get them on the road to success?
Well, I think the manufacturers of those early motorcycles were trying to prove durability and longevity, and they were doing it through performance. So amongst all those brands, there were like 140 of them back then. Everybody was trying to have a better mousetrap, and so it was an important part of what we were all about. And it went through ups and downs, obviously, because these things were just being designed at that point. But
racing has a nasty habit of going up and down. But do you remember any of the races? Do you have a particularly fond memory of a race or a race track? Or
I would go with my father to some of these events, but I don't recall a lot of those real early years because I was only about that big.
Right, yeah.
But I think through the course of your lifetime, racing has been something very important, because I know when I was a young guy, you were taking Karen, Michael, and I, and Mom to the Springfield Mile, the Indy Mile, the Sacramento Mile, the Ohio Half Mile, Elkhart Lake for the 883 races, the XR 1200 races, and I mean, even today, we're still adamant about racing. I'm proud to say we just won the King of the Bagger race with Kyle Wyman, and that was a fantastic championship to get. And drag racing, our good friends Andy Hines and Eddie Krawick, multi-champions, and we've got lots of dirt track heroes.
Yeah.
Lots of dirt track heroes.
Yeah, well, of course, AMA flat track, you've been pretty dominant for a long time. And I see at the back of this room here some pretty hair-raising looking race machines. Now, you two are very involved in the company today, still. Your dad was until not that long ago. How do you think those four would look at you today and look at the company today? And how do you think they'd feel about where it's gone to?
I think they would be blown away for a lot of reasons. Again, kind of repeating what my dad said, you got to take yourself back to the early 1900s and dirt roads and horse and buggy and steam-powered locomotives. And so they were caught up in a transportation transformation. The Wright brothers were 1903, Henry Ford was 1903, and Harley and the Davidsons were 1903. And these guys were driven for success, and they didn't have a lot. And in fact, in 1904, they pretty much became bankrupt and were given a check or loaned a check from a relative from Madison, Wisconsin, to keep them going. It was a check for $170, which is on display in the museum. And so I think that the other ingredient that's really powerful is the four of them together were a powerhouse, because each one of the founders brought a unique strength, whether it was engineering, marketing, sales, manufacturing. And so bringing that together and really looking at their future and putting that vision out there, it's pretty amazing to think that between 1903 and 1920, 17 years, we went from the little 10 by 15 wooden shed in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, to selling motorcycles in roughly 67 countries around the world. And by 1920, we were the largest motorcycle manufacturer in the world. 17 years.
Wow! I was just going to ask you what you've learned about your grandparents, your great grandparents, over the last years. But I think you pretty much encapsulated it there. I mean, obviously you two are historians. Everybody here is a historian because the whole place is full of historic machinery. And you've obviously studied it pretty well. So they did do an incredible job, as you say, in just 17 years.
Yeah, and I think too, the drive they had to make the best product, to engineer it, to get out there and become number one and test and win again. The product really just enthusiasts from around the world were pulled together by the product, right? So in our era, as we've lived through this brand crescendo and as a lifestyle brand, I think you asked earlier, what would they think of, what's going on today? I think they'd be surprised at, what a gravitational pull the product itself has had to create this lifestyle of people participating together across the world.
Do you think they'd be as proud of you as you obviously are of them?
I would only hope so, but I don't know.
I think what's really kind of neat is I think our riders around the globe, our dealers around the globe, are so thankful for those four guys, because they created an iconic brand that has touched the lives of literally hundreds of thousands of people around the world. And it has changed people's lives. And there's a passion about Harley-Davidson that is very unique in the industry. And all of this heritage and these stories helps build that passion, that heritage. And it's a really neat feeling. So I know I personally thank them all the time.
Well, as you say, it is an incredible worldwide company, because to mention a very bad word, I was on the Honda Carr dealer council back in the early 90s, and we went to Tokyo for the Tokyo Auto Show and to see the guys at the factory. And we were talking to somebody in the street, and we were right outside the Harley-Davidson dealership, right down in the Ginza, right downtown Tokyo, and everybody just was raving about these Harley-Davidson motorbikes. obviously certainly made the mark.
Yeah.
Earlier on, you were talking about races, and drag racing, and what are some of the names that really come to mind, and how much do you think racing has helped put Harley on the map?
Well, I think racing has really been part of our fabric. Racing is it's a great sport, but it's also a business. And so as we've gone through decades of different types and forms of racing and budgeting and so forth, we've made sure that it's part of our fabric. And our first official team was in 1914, factory team. And we still have a factory team today of sorts. And it's rewarding, when you think of all of those events and what those events have done to attract our riders and our customers to come and ride their bikes, to watch them. It's very rewarding.
Well, I think you had a question, George.
Yeah, I was just going to say, what are the pillars of the company, some of the building blocks of the company that the founders put in place that you can still see today, that are still part of the fabric of the company today?
So there's a story that I think, a true story, which is, I think, really visionary, that occurred in 1907 when we incorporated the company. And that is that when they were forming the board of directors, the founders said, hey, we really need to have a dealer on this board. And the reason they wanted to do that is they knew that dealer was the front line. He was the closest to the customer, right? And he knew a lot of information. And so C.H. Lang was our dealer in Chicago, and he was invited to participate in the board. And I think what's so powerful about that vision is, to me, that was the very beginning of the company, the founders, the board, wanting to remain close to our company, close to our customers. And that has been a philosophy from back then all the way to today. We talk about being close to our customers today in strategy meetings across the company.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it has been a most amazing story internationally, because we've lived here now, our family's lived in Milwaukee for over 35 years. And we were here for the 100th birthday. And my grandson was about 5 at the time. And his mother, his grandmother, they went down to look at the bikes along the front there by the lake. And they just couldn't believe, he couldn't believe the amount of bikes. And I was up in a bar in Elkhart Lake, which I know you'll find odd to believe that I was actually in a bar. And I don't know what I was doing there, but there were a lot of people staying up in Elkhart Lake, yes, for the do down here in Milwaukee. And these guys were all from England. And they had brought their bikes from England, and they'd been here for about a week or more. And they had ridden hundreds of miles. They were going to ride hundreds of miles more here in the States, yeah, the home of Harley-Davidson, before they put the cars back on the boat and went back to England.
Yeah.
But talking about racing, hopefully we have a couple of special guests who are going to zoom in on high tech. And it's going to be Scott Parker, who is a 2009 Motorsports Hall of Fame inductee, along with me. He was 9-time AMA Grand National Flat Track champion, all-time leader in flat track with 94 wins, and 3-time AMA Pro Athlete of the Year. And another guest is going to be Chris Carr, who was inducted just last week into the Motorsports Hall of Fame. He was a 2020 inductee. 7-time AMA Grand National Flat Track champion. Second all-time to Scott Parker, which they were ribbing each other about a lot last week in flat track wins. And 2003 AMA Pro Athlete of the Year. So hopefully we can contact those guys. So let's talk to Scott, as he is the all-time winner, as he kept telling us last week.
Okay, Dave. Well, it's really a great honor. I gotta say, hats off to Willie G, and haven't seen him and talked to him in a while. Billy Davidson and Karen, what a great group of people to honor the guys into the Motorsports Hall of Fame. It was a great honor for me to get inducted into it, and now to have 4 more great founders of Harley-Davidson. It's really, really awesome. And then also the guys that really put this together after them. We've had some great presidents that run Harley-Davidson, and hats off to them. We've got to really, take our hats off that just the founders, and they just carried on the legacy to give us motorcycles to race over the years and win championships. And it's been a great honor to be a part of Harley-Davidson over the years. Just seeing every time I see the old vintage motorcycles, board tracks, all them going around the old videos and stuff like that, it really brings you back to here. I did it, some 35 years after them guys, or I don't know exactly what the number is, but a lot of years after they were around, and to go out and win some championships for the founders that started this company. It's been a great honor for me, and a great honor to help induct them into the 2022 class of the Motorsports Hall of Fame.
Scott, can you hear me all right?
I can.
So, who was one of your greatest rivals? Was it a guy called Chris Carr by any chance?
Oh yeah, I got to be with him last weekend when he got inducted into the Motorsports Hall of Fame. It was really an honor to be there. That was one more reason. Obviously, they did it this year in Michigan, so it was close to go there. But it was still a great honor to have a race partner that we competed week in and week out together. And over the years, we've been friends and still can talk and not have to stab knives at each other.
Well, there we see Chris Carr, who was the 2020 inductee last week up in Michigan. Chris, great to see you. And tell us what your memories of Harley-Davidson in particular are on racing.
Well, I tell you, it was an honor to race for the Harley-Davidson Motor Company for the 11 or so years that I did. 10 of those years as a teammate to Scott Parker, trying to chase him down and make a name for myself was a little bit difficult. But more important to that, I thank you all for asking me to join in your little celebration here tonight. I can think of no better 3 people to tell the Harley-Davidson story than Willie G, Bill, and Karen. Being able to see you guys at the races as we represented the Harley-Davidson Motor Company through the years. It was always special when you guys showed up at Springfield or DuQuoin or Sacramento or wherever it was, and knowing that the namesakes of the brand were there to cheer us on, made those events even that much more special, especially if Scotty and I went 1-2 or 2-1, depending on how you looked at it. And it was just a total honor to race for the motor company during the time that I did. And I thank you for all the memories, and a much-deserved congratulations to the Davidson family and Harley-Davidson for their induction into the 2022 class of the Motorsports Hall of Fame of America. Congrats.
What do you think made the Harley so competitive? You and Scott were so successful. What was it about the bikes that made them so successful?
I think more than anything, it was, I started riding them in the 80s. And so I think it's all the 70 years of R&D that all the previous racers of V-twin motorcycles produced by Harley-Davidson are what made the XR 750 lot of lessons that were learned along the way. I'm sure they burned a hole in a lot of pistons along the way, but by the time the XR came around and we got a chance to get on them, they were pretty well perfected, and we rode them as hard as we could. I think all the years that the company had been racing, we were beneficiaries of that.
Well, you and Scott had tremendous rivalry on the track, and you were also having a lot of rivalry in the bar last week. And you came, the thing that you both were making sure that everybody knew was you basically came first and second in practically every race you did. But one of you has one more podium overall than the other. Now, who would that be, Chris?
That would be me. I got one more podium. He's got more wins, but I got more podiums.
Mr. Hobbs, you just had to bring that one up, didn't you?
Hey, Scotty, all I can say is if you've been second in as many categories as I am to you, you'd be bragging about that one. You weren't. So.
I hear you all the way, Chris. Congratulations. Hey, we had a great career with Harley-Davidson. Like you said it right, you know. Them guys coming to the races, supporting us week in and week out, was always made us feel so much better to be out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, those two guys, I tell you what, they're a lot of fun. You don't want to be around them when they get going and talking about the bragging rights, so they are a lot of fun. And that sort of brings to the end our little broadcast, and we want to thank very much, obviously, the hospitality here at the museum. Thank you all for that. And thank you all, Willie G., Bill and Karen Davids, who are coming along tonight to give you some memories of your grandfather and your great-grandfather. So a great combo, and obviously a super successful company based here in Milwaukee. Well,
I just want to add that when you look at the Motorsports Hall of Fame of America and the inductees in the motorcycle category that we've had over the years, the Motorsports Hall of Fame and Harley-Davidson are almost synonymous because, you know, you met tonight, you saw Chris and Scotty. We were walking around earlier and we found this with Joe Leonard, who was one of our earliest inductees in the motorcycle category, and Joe Petrali, Everett Brashear. There are so many names that are part of the fabric of this company and in turn the fabric of the Motorsports Hall of Fame of America. So we're excited about inducting the Harley founders in March, and we thank all of you for making this possible today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here and sharing this momentous induction.
Yeah,
It's our
We're
honor.
thrilled to share this with both of you.
we are.
Yeah.
It's a real honor. Thank you.
thank you.
The honor
It
is
has
all
been.
ours, but
Thank
thank
you.
you again.
Thank you so much.